Hello and welcome to episode 506 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the artist, writer and creator of the wonderful webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello. That's me, hello.
And a man who has comics quite literally pouring out of every hole because he's publishing quite a few, and we'll find out a little bit more about that later. It's Tony Esmond.
I've been going by the name Boney Dabrowski this week, just so we're clear.
Oh, really? That was you, was it? Sorry I missed your call.
Boney Dabrowski.
Great.
Oh, God.
We've discussed this before, but like, if I could go back, I would write under a pseudonym and be on this podcast under a pseudonym.
You'd be on this podcast under a pseudonym. What would what would your pseudonym be?
B. Dutcher. No,
well,
It's going to be like Jack Hammer or something.
Yeah.
The first 20 years of making small press comics, I wrote under a pen name, and then recently I've written 400 or 500 pen name. Yeah, so it's quite
We've
fun.
got a new guy starting in my work this week. I'll give him a second name so you won't know who it is. But he's a Japanese guy and he's called Hawk Kusanagi. I was like, that is the best.
That's a cool name. I want to be called that.
Hawk. It's just like, great.
His last name's not Tua, is it?
No.
Oh dear! If you listen to a few years in the future, that was relevant. That was relevant.
Yeah,
that was relevant about 4 months ago.
Okay. But it was about blowjobs.
Yeah.
And then she ripped a load of people off.
Yeah.
Did she?
Yeah.
Bitcoin. Probably still would though.
But we don't, because
Allegedly.
this show is free, and we're here to talk about lots of comics. Certainly a lot of comics that
we had a rather inspiring talk already, haven't we?
We are feeling inspired, we are feeling influenced, and we got a chance to talk with Sean Michael Robinson about Living the Line books, a publisher who you might have heard us talk a bit about. It seems if you look back at a back catalogue, quite a few of their releases have been like on recommends, and certainly a lot of their future books will be as well. But we managed to talk about their publishing slate, how they came to be, some fascinating talk about the work that goes into reproducing older work. It's great. So we're not going to spend too long waffling now, because you want to hear all that good shit.
It's meaty.
We
just let him talk, and he gives a lot of great information. Doesn't he? A lot of sense.
Yeah, it is meaty. How do you feel about that, Tony, being a vegetarian?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah? Yeah. So it's
you don't have to eat it, do you, for it to be meaty?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
look at this. That's meaty.
Yeah. Is that right? Does it look a bit too meaty? You know, Dan,
it looks like a sheep's liver when I squeeze it.
This sounds like one of those emails from HR when they want to take out like all kind of words that relate to violence.
Do you think meaty should be removed? Do you think we should use the word meaty?
It's flesh.
As a lifelong vegetarian,
violence.
I do not care whether people say it or not. I don't
mind.
Yeah. Or flesh or something like that. I don't care.
Oh, that makes my skin crawl. The word flesh. I don't know why. It's just the word flesh. You know what I mean? You can really put some
you
can put some stank on it.
ASMR, wherever it is now.
Yeah, flesh.
Some weirdo.
Flesh. To that guy that loves listening to this show for the ASMR.
Or lady. Can we both?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Could be one of those two.
Whoever.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Can I give a shout out to Kate Daunt, by the way?
Go for it.
Yeah, there you go. John, she's my boss. She'll really enjoy the fact I gave her a shout out after that filth.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, this is a highbrow show, but we had a laugh talking comics.
We did.
And living the line. So let's get to that, and we'll go recommend some great books in a bit, and probably have some shout-outs. So, gents, you need to sort out your filofaxes and give me those shout-outs in a minute. But right now, let's talk some Living the Line. Okay, now on this show, we've had quite a few publishers appear on our radar over the years, haven't we, gents?
May we?
I think when they consistently put out books that everyone needs to be sort of reading, then we have to talk to them. So we've done it again. We've thrown the chum out to one of our current favourites, and amazingly, they want to talk to us, so that's quite nice. If you've been listening to the show, you've heard us talk about some of the recent, or upcoming releases from Living the Line books, and now we've got the one and only Sean Michael Robinson on to talk. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Well, thanks, Vince. Appreciate it. How are you doing?
You're good, man. Yeah, we're good. Loving your work.
Yeah, loving. The sun has come out in England for the first time in months, so. We can finally
you guys
say
have the sun too. I'm never sure about that.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it listening to the show for the last couple of months. We've been miserable bastards. But but one thing that has cheered us up is reading an awful lot of comics that you've been sending us. And
that's quite an email.
Not just then, but we've been checking out. But as you know, like in the past that you've been putting out, there are some people that, and you just appeared like just boom out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And certainly for a lot of our listeners, they may not know about Living the Line. And you started in 2021. I didn't realise you started so recently. So how did this come to be?
Yeah. Well, you know how sometimes something happens and it seems like a sudden thing, but you realize that all the things that have been happening before that are kind of pointing there accidentally. I had been a wannabe cartoonist for many years, and then I kind of phased into, when I met my now wife, phased into a life as an itinerant busker, believe it or not, and also an illustrator. And I had put out a lot of work as a freelance illustrator. I had a book come out through Powerhouse Books in 2010 or 2011 that I co-wrote with my friend Joy, and I illustrated. It was based on an internet article, and I'd written for the Comics Journal and done lots of that type of stuff that's sort of peripheral to that type of thing. But what really ended up making things kind of roll forward, not knowing, of course, where I was rolling, was doing a lot of pre-press and design work. And so specifically, one of my childhood heroes was Dave Sim of Cerebus fame, and read...
Same, man.
Yeah, I mean, read his stuff from a very, very young age, perhaps too young. Very, very formative influence on me, and pointed the way to so many different things. Even stuff like, I had never read any Oscar Wilde until I'm seeing Oscar Wilde being quoted in the pages of this funny animal comic. And
we went and watched the Marx Brothers movies, didn't we? Because of Dave Sim, stuff like that.
Exactly right. Yeah. And there's a world of things that he kind of pointed to, and I had kind of kept in contact with him. I'd actually talked to him on the phone a couple times and written letters a few times with him. But he had a huge pre-press disaster, and I basically, I'm going to cut this short. Sorry.
No,
I was giving him some advice because I had done pre-press for my own illustration work, and just gave him the most basic kind of, it seems like perhaps this is what happened. And, he's a very guy who values intuition a lot, and he ended up just being like, well, look, I've got all these people who want me to remaster these books for digital release. You're going to be in charge of this project now. So what's your freelance rate? And I'm just like, what? And, I didn't know about that, but he essentially was just like, look, you obviously, you're a smart guy. You care about my stuff, and the way it looks. You've obviously are a detail-oriented person. He had seen some of my comics and illustrations. He's like, you do this thing. And so I spent a tremendous amount of time learning how to do pre-press for real, for the, from the ground up. And I did that for many, many years. I worked on essentially like remastering those books in an absurd level of detail from all of the different places that you could get source material for it. And I learned an awful lot about production and design and pre-press and things like that, and ended up doing pre-press for a lot of other people, and design for a lot of other people, and having already been a designer before that. And so all these things kind of, were in the air when in 2020, when everything else was happening, Dave Sim made the announcement that he was not going to publish The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, which I had been reading. He would, fax me pages of it or send some things in the mail. And a guy who I got to be friends with, Carson Grubaugh, had been the, illustrator that took over from Dave when he couldn't draw anymore. And so this was just heartbreaking to me that this book that was just immensely personally influential to me, just on the basis of pure visuals, was not going to come out for these very, very difficult circumstances. And essentially Carson and I just kind of put our heads together, and I was like, well, Can we just make this happen ourselves? And we talked to Dave about it, and Dave was like, yeah, I mean, knock yourselves out. And we talked about the terms of it, and it's just like, okay, well, let's do it. And what would it look like to do it for real? And having done all these jobs in pieces before, I was able to sort of piece together, what does this look like to actually do it? What would be the ideal way to do this thing? And I got to do it, what I thought was the best way possible to get as many eyeballs on the book as possible. And the busking background kind of helped with like the crowdfunding aspect. Like there are core people who want to have this book. What can we do to make it clear to them that they can help us make the book? And they did. And after I did that book, it was clear to me that there were lots and lots of other books that were in a similar kind of situation where, for whatever reason, and it's sometimes fun to try to figure out what reason, these books were not picked up for English release, or they weren't published in the first place, or they've been completely forgotten about. In the case of a lot of the books we're doing now, things that happened 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and it's just a forgotten part of some other kind of comic tradition. And as an illustrator and a comic artist myself, it's just painful to me to having spent all this time thinking about like the canon and the great works and all this stuff, and to realize that it's completely meaningless when you don't actually have access to what those things are. We have such a small, tiny fraction of access to the whole of comics history, and it's just so much material out there that people have never seen or never thought about or never been able to read in their native language. And it's a world where if you got guts and you got some skills and you have some goodwill, you can put together quite impressive lineup.
Mate, the Strange Death is an absolute masterpiece. Thank you. I absolutely love that book. It's I go back to it constantly. One of my favorite books of the year it came out and everything like that. Will you do something else with Dave Sim at all, or?
I don't think Dave would be interested in that.
Right.
No, I mean, certainly, if he wants me to publish anything, I would be happy to do that. But Dave, I think that he's somebody who. I mean, he worked. I mean, good God. I mean, he was making stuff for public consumption from age 20 to age 60. And, I think he's earned the right to do whatever the hell he wants.
I agree.
And not feel like he's got something to kind of live up to,
Are you still in contact with him?
Certainly. I would be happy to publish something else by Dave.
Are you still in contact with him, or?
Let's see. I mean, we've sent each other packages every once in a while, and I get scans of the stuff that he's working on.
Brilliant.
So,
okay.
His assistant sends me scans all the time. He's been drawing. His wrist is 100% better.
Right.
He literally didn't draw for 8 years, and wore a wrist brace for 8 years, and then next thing you know, he can draw again. And,
he was very kind about me if something I wrote. So he read it out on his YouTube channel, which I was very excited about.
Oh yeah, Tony's face the day.
Yeah. It was called "Why Aren't There More Blowjobs in American Comics?" I believe was the title of it, which I think he found amusing. But you can see why he might read it out. But okay, good. Yeah, that's a great one. And then of course the book that I found after that was Plaza, which again was another book of the year for me. How did that? Because that is this strange. It's like looking inside the craziest pinball machine.
No, absolutely. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. And if you've never read any of Yuichi's stuff, Yokoyama's work, he takes a kind of fine arts approach to comics, I would say, and all of his stuff has a similar kind of through line where you can kind of see people as viewed by birds, I would say, is the best way to distill it, like a distanced view of humanity. And so Plaza is sort of the most extreme book, in my estimation, that he's ever made, where the only conceit is the starting conceit that you know from the very beginning, which is you're going to see a parade, but the parade is going to have that same kind of distance from it. And so these people maybe they're celebrating, maybe they're trying to appease an angry god, maybe they're trying to get the harvest to be better, but all these things come out and roll out to you, and there's bees that fly out of a giant wooden sculpture, and it kills the audience who continues to chant, and the people get speared by arrows, and giant displays of all these things. Yeah, so Ryan Holmberg, who I work with on the Smudge line of manga as well, one of the first things I did when we had finished the Kickstarter for Strange Death of Alex Raymond, and I was really hyped about this, and I was just glowing like, we did it, we did this thing, we're going to be able to print 5,000 of these books in a beautiful hardback in Canada. just by what these people raised, and I wrote Ryan, who, both of us had written for the Comics Journal back at the same time, around 2010, 2011.
I think I know Ryan from his work. I think I found him through Bubbles.
Right.
And then I bought that book he wrote about being a translator, which is a great little book for sort of Japanese underground comics almost, isn't it? Really interesting, yeah.
Yeah, translator with no talent. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
several years worth of his Instagram posts distilled into a book. It's a great book, and so I wrote to him and I was like, "Hey Ryan, I don't know if you remember me, but we're looking to do some books," and I basically just sent him like a hit list of like, these would be my dream projects, and he basically wrote back like, "This never going to happen." What a ridiculous list. By the way, give me a call on the phone and we can talk about it. So we've been talking ever since, and we send packages back and forth to each other. At first, it was about a lot of like trying to figure out the right project, and in the case of Yokoyama Yuichi, I mean, it's just like nobody else wants to. I mean, this was a special time in publishing, right? When everybody's, everything was kind of frozen in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But like, this was a book by him that had not come out, and it's just clearly like such a statement of intent. And that's the goal. That if maybe there's a sort of scattershot quality to the aesthetics of a lot of the books we do, but those two projects I think hit on one of the commonalities, which is something that is so much itself that it's compelling just in and of itself, like commitment to project, or commitment to aesthetic, or commitment to a conceit, or commitment to just scaring the bejesus out of somebody, like whatever it is. I
Consistent
want
as well.
To be committed,
Yeah, massively. Are you hooked into the sort of Japanese manga scene? Is that because you seem to have a great eye for choosing projects?
Totally.
If you don't mind saying so.
Yeah. So I probably read as much Japanese comics as I did English language comics, like from a pretty young age, because I had gotten into a lot of kind of backdoor entry. A lot of people have like videotape trading circles and things like that when I was like 12, 13 years old, stuff like that. Somebody sends you every episode of Macross on dubbed cassettes or whatever. I watched lots and lots of anime, probably way too much. And was very interested.
Some of it was pretty lively back then as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the aesthetic differences were really interesting, and I had a lot of fine arts background and things like that, so I had a lot of things to push against as well. But it was interesting to me at the time, and this is one of the through lines for me, is that just how little we kind of had access to. And then you see one little part of the picture, and you think that you can imagine, you can recreate the whole thing, And that's definitely the case with manga, where any given genre, I mean, it's more extreme with some than others, but we have no idea what's available because the industry there it's so tremendous, and the scale of the publishing is so big. It really is like you sit down and talk science fiction with somebody who has read one Philip Jose Farmer book, and it's extrapolating what science fiction must be from this one book about a guy fucking a plant, like that's. I feel like sometimes that's our view of the manga industry,
I feel the same about manga. The way you feel about manga, I totally agree. But we feel the same way about Bond Dessinée as well. We just see so little of it. So little of it comes over here, and so much of it is fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. We're really missing out on loads of stuff. Yeah.
And like with manga as well. I mean, as we've spoken many times, it is now just washing over everything, over the bookstores with the Tokyo Pops and the animes and everything else, the One Pieces, the Dragon Ball, all these things that are juggernauts, absolute juggernauts. But as well as those, there's all of these other books like the ones you're putting out, which no one will know about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, there's all this mainstream. If people sort of say, oh yeah, manga books, they'll talk to you about, Chainsaw Man and like
One Piece or something. Yeah,
all these books, but they won't necessarily mention like was it Her Frankenstein? Is that was the one that we?
Oh, so good. Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like Tezuka's become a forgotten character these days. It's like there's no, like you say, that we're losing the history, the sort of corporate knowledge and the fan knowledge of these books is disappearing.
Well, and he has a kind of ubiquity as well in terms of his stylistic influence is so heavy that he's in a similar situation to somebody like Jack Kirby. If you I teach an intro to art, intro to comics class at MCAD, Art University.
Oh, cool.
And if you show Jack Kirby to a kid in your class, they're a lot of times they're going to think this is a crude, what's this weird blocky thing? The thing is that they miss. It's so ubiquitous, the style influence, that it's almost like the undiluted thing is like too much.
Yeah.
So Tezuka's in a similar kind of position, I think, where if 2/3 of the field are derived from his style in some kind of way, then when you see the real thing, it seems less than in a certain kind of way, because everybody's sort of taken so much from it.
Yeah. Totally, man.
Yeah, it's like when like a pop band does like a cover version of a classic song, and
so maddening.
The young people talk about that song like they've never heard the original, and you're like, please stop saying words, because you haven't heard the original, and the original is what it is. That's not to say that cover songs can't be great. But,
well, maybe. Yeah. Alien Ant Farm, they're all right.
I really fucking vibed with that the Face Meat book. You sent through to us. That's not due out yet for a little while. Was it a few months?
Yeah, Bontantero is an incredible guy. I'm gonna have to send you the essay, Dan, because the initial review.
It's not in the book, is it?
Right.
The essay. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
With a review copy.
We sent out review PDFs that didn't have the essay yet because it wasn't complete in terms of the layout and everything. But he's an incredible figure. This is a book that we're going to be putting out in May. This is the 4th Smudge book. So each of these books is translated and edited by Ryan Holmberg. And Ryan and I argue endlessly about who the next artist is going to be and what the next title is going to be and how to roll out all these people, and have very fun discussions about it. But Bontantero was a internationally known tattoo artist. He actually is just a raconteur and polymath, and a guy who was just had his fingers in every pie. Yeah. And he was popularly drawing shoujo comics, like girls comics with flowers and hearts and moon eyes and everything in the 50s. And then one day was just like, fuck it, I can't do this anymore, and grabbed his guitar and his tattooing needles and walked up and down the country. This is not a joke. This is a true story. He did this for half a decade, learning tattooing by giving people free tattoos. And every time he met somebody that knew more than he did, he would apprentice with this guy temporarily and basically take everything that he could, and just would sing in a bar to get his meal and his water, or and his ale or whatever, and then he would tattoo some people and do whatever else he did, and then move on to the next town.
What, dude?
And after many years of that, he's ready to settle down. And so what does he do? Is he draws early horror comics for men's magazines, and you can see from when the book comes out, or you guys have already seen it. Yeah. It's really kind of an international book in a certain sense, because you can see he clearly had access to lots of different American and international, or Italian horror magazines and things like that. Perhaps those were translated in some of the American publications, but the stylistic influences and the tropes are all over the place. So he's doing these traditional Japanese ghost stories while also doing things that could have just been straight out of an EC comic.
Yeah, totally.
But with totally over the top flair to everything.
It's interesting you said he started off in the girls comics, because if I'd equate it to a comic that I kind of know myself, it would be of the UK Misty, which is very much kind of like a sort of a mild horror title for girls.
Very culty over here as well, isn't it, Misty? Yeah.
But it's like that dialed up to 11. It's fucking crazy. There's so much nut stuff going on. This is an absolute page turner. I'd really recommend anyone to kind of get that when it comes out.
So that's the beauty for me of that sort of underground manga, and manga in its totality really is that we're so used to tropes, we're so used to story tricks, we're so used to whatever in British and American comics. When you read a Japanese comic, you don't know what's going to happen.
No, the cultural difference is so big.
Expectations are fucking blown out the water with a Japanese comic, especially with their underground. That's off and running, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did these for magazines that, you can see we actually left in all the ads that were running in his stories in there. It's like a clinic where you can get penicillin injections, and, special phone line, and, men's magazine. And, it was a very seedy world, and he fit really well in with that, I mean, this is a guy who was 14 or 15 when he volunteered to be a kamikaze.
Fucking hell!
When he said later, because he liked the outfits. But you know, this is how he started off his adult life, right? You know, he
everything's okay after that, isn't it? If you survive that job, you can do anything literally for the rest of your life, and it doesn't matter now, does it? Yeah.
Fucking hell. But like with a book like that, obviously, you know, it is a timepiece as well, and you know, we love you know, these reprints of classic UK books and you know, the omnibuses and stuff. But this sort of work, you know, where are you getting the artwork from? And because it's crisp as anything, the line work and this beautiful reproduction. I mean, obviously we're just looking at PDFs, but we know we can see it's going to print beautifully.
It's going to reproduce excellently.
You know,
there's a lot of hours put in, I'm guessing, around that.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, I don't mean this as a brag. I'm going to try to say this in a way that is clear.
Go on, brag.
No. I want to make clear the low opinion I have of this particular thing. I am probably one of the foremost experts in the world on reproducing line art. And image reproduction in general, in terms of preparation for press, which is about the same as saying that you're a world champion hot dog eater, but like way less sexy. I didn't mean to do it. I'm sorry. It was kind of an accident.
I'll just say this as someone with a design background and like an illustrator and stuff. Never mind hot dogs. What you're saying is very sexy to me right now.
Can I quote you on that?
There's a pull quote there. Put that on your CV.
Exactly right. I mean, so the truth is that none of the books that we have done with the smudge line so far, and this includes 2 others that we have in the can right now, so that we haven't announced yet. So we got six in the can, 5 all the way in the can, and a 6th one that's in transit right now. And all of those have been from some print source of some type or the other. But I'm a lazy guy, so you know, I try to do the 2 things that ensure it to be as good as possible, which is that we look for the very best print source that exists. We get every edition of the book or the work in question. And then I spend a lot of time writing scripts that you know, address each book or each chapter. In the case of the Bonton Tarot book, like every book was from a different magazine, and some of them were just atrociously you know, printed originally. And then I try to script as much as I can from the beginning, so that each of these things are sort of handled in a way by the computer before I do any cleanup or anything like that. But then I go through and meticulously clean things up and everything. But I try to keep that to a minimum, because like I said, I'm a fairly lazy guy. I like to have the work on the front end rather than the back end. But you know, I do pre-press for other people and stuff. The Kamui book that just came out from Drawn and Quarterly, I did all of the pre-press and lettering for that with my friend Tom Kaczynski, who is the head of Uncivilized Books.
Okay.
You know, so you know, I do it in a lot of things, and you know,
well, the like passion's clearly there, man. I mean, this thing is like, I mean, you're being sort of humble about it, but I think if people you can't just increase like the threshold or like the contrast and stuff on artwork. You just there's more to that, especially when you're dealing with vintage artwork and cleanup. And I know a friend of the show, Alan Harvey, does some amazing sort of restoration stuff on Golden Age stuff, and there's so much that goes into it that I think is, I mean, it's the best kind of illusion, because the reader will never understand the work that's gone into the work that's gone into it, but it is a labour of love, isn't it? Because we
20 seconds we spend on each page, you know.
But with books like this, though, you're spending more than sometimes you'll 20 seconds, you know, if you're reading it, but you'll go back and there'll be a page that you just think, I need to look at that again.
Oh, massively. I think the thing for me, and because there's a lot of manga coming out now, you and I, all of us have lived through that age where we've only got a little bit, but there's a lot of companies now going, manga's the hotness, we'll stick manga out, and not all of it is interesting enough. But I think for me, you and a couple of other guys have got an idea for what is, I suppose it's the wrong phrase, but it's cool. So it's very cool and hip, your manga that you're putting out, even though it's old. To me, it's have you got an eye for it like that? Is that what you're picking up on? Are you looking for the transgressive? Are you looking for that sort of thing as well, or?
So Ryan is ultimately responsible for the he especially at the beginning. I mean, her Frankenstein was, he just said, this is the one, we got to do this first. This is the thing to do. But we do spend an awful lot of time kind of going back and forth about all those different types of things. And yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just like survivor bias ship. Like if somebody has not been picked up in a genre that's already been published a lot, maybe it's because they're wilder than everybody else. Like,
yeah, can be.
And let's be clear, like the one that just came out, Shinichi Koga, Mansect. This is a book by a guy who was the top of his field for, I mean, at least 20 years. So, when The Exorcist came out in Japan in 1974, the U.S. company was very big on making the translation a huge splash. They hired the two biggest horror people at the time to make partial adaptations of the book. They hired two people, Kazuo Umezu, right, and Shinichi Koga. That's who they were looking for. So this guy was the tip of the top, right? But the thing is that he's so unique, right? I say he's unique. He actually was. His career is owed to imitating Umezu. Because essentially, like, he was hired by Margaret, which was a girls' magazine in the mid '60s, to make an imitation Kazuo Umezu. The Kazuo Umezu was making these stories, horrible stories, where girls running away from snake women, and being menaced by every corner. And he was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then he did it, and he did it crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier. And the next thing you know, he's done it for 3 years, and you've got stories where people are, I mean, I won't even go into the details because, irrelevant. But he spent so much of his career just mining these things that people are so afraid of, but then taking them and just exploding them. It's not just like, I'm afraid of frogs. It's like, I'm afraid of frogs, and my mom has to breastfeed a frog because otherwise she's going to die of a fever. But then my brother turns into a frog and starts sucking everybody's blood and kills me. You know what I mean? Like that's it's not just like people are afraid of this thing. He's like, I'm terrified of this thing, and I'm going to explode this concept, and because of that, you really get like somebody who's just completely undiluted. There's no, it's hard for me to imagine another publisher. Once again, I don't mean this as a brag. This is a personal flaw of my own. It's hard for me to imagine another publisher that would put out a book that has a scene like the one that's in Mansect in the middle of it with the cave, for anybody who has read it already.
Mansect is full of, I mean, like some of the black and white in there. They're like every other page you're going to stop and look at the artwork. But then there's moments of pure nightmare. There's panels of just pure nightmare on there. But at the same time, they're rendered so beautifully. I don't know whether it's because like we've read comics so long now, and whether it's been doing the show, we've gone beyond the, oh god, that's scary, and now that's scary.
Look at how he's rendered that.
Look at the image.
There's that scene where the guy's eating all the bugs, and I'm showing this to my class, and they're all like getting ready to retch, and I'm like, look at the split brush and the way that he's rendered hair. He's clearly used a different tool to do the hair and the profile line, and then he goes back in with this mottled texture. It's probably some kind of cheesecloth, and they're just like,
yeah.
When I eventually pass away and I'm killed by a pile of comics falling on me, I want them to discover those books and just wonder for a few minutes whether I'm a serial killer. That I literally live for that. That's just brilliant. Yeah.
But was that the first book that was released of this particular
Frankenstein's first smudge book, is it?
It's the first smudge book, but of the
Koga's first book. Yeah, he's never had a book in English. It's absolutely astonishing. Okay. This guy who had been making comics from 1957 or 58 is his debut, and then he died in 2018, and was worked very close to his death, and yet he had not had a single thing out in English before.
That's crazy. I mean,
absolutely,
yeah. When you see,
and like I said, top of the field for many decades,
Yeah, which makes you then like think of the. I mean, firstly, thank you for putting these books out. But then you get to the questions of like, why is that so? How does this creator get sort of almost passed over for like international translations and things like that?
Sure.
Well, I mean they're questions that you must have asked yourself as well.
I do, and I think that's kind of, like I said, I've actually asked that myself of many of our books. Like, it's shocking to me that The Exile had not come out in English. When I was talking to the publisher from the Netherlands, the Scratch, who did that, they were just like, yeah, we got The Exile still available, and we got Miel van de Piet's Centralia. And I was like, this is drawn by a 19-year-old kid. Yeah. This is a debut. Yeah. And this has not been picked up. And then, I have this kind of second thought where I'm like trying to imagine myself sitting in the offices of various comic people who I've sat in the offices of. I won't say who these people are, but trying to imagine I'm in that office and somebody hands them a copy of Centralia. And what is it that turns them off about this? And in that case, I was like, well, it's like that flying skateboard thing that they have in the end sequence. And it's also in the front. Somebody thinks that's not very cool. You know what I mean? Like that's my, little things like that. And it's like, to me, it's just, I don't have that kind of attitude. Yeah. I have read every book by Charles Dickens because he's one of the fantastic author. I've read every book ever written by like a Thackeray, because he's my favorite author. But I also have read trashy novels. I mean, I learned how to write by reading romance novels, because you can see the seams, you can see how they're put together. And I used to love reading romance novels and figuring out how they plotted them. And, one of my favorite books of all time is a book called How to Write Romance Novels that just details how you break those things down. So to me, like, genre stuff doesn't really matter. I don't get the same kind of like icks.
I think Alan Moore says that, doesn't he? He says, try and read bad books. Try and read trashy books. I think it's part of that thing he's done recently. But I think having haunted the halls of Angoulême for a publisher, and they'll say, the publisher will say, Tony, can you pick up some books that might be useful for us to look at, to pick up, to take on? And I've shown them, and he's gone, is that from Holland? And I go, yeah. And he went, they're fucking crazy out there, mate. He literally says that, and I was loving all this stuff. Somebody riding a wave, smoking a pipe, riding a poodle. There's all this sort of thing going on, and I'm like, this is just brilliant. He said, they are crazy.
But crazy. Things like The Exile, which was like one of my books of the year, when it came out, that just like hit me out of nowhere. And to just think that could have just stayed in its home country, essentially, and that's crazy.
Absolutely would have, I believe. And I think there's a very simple explanation for that particular one, and it's a plot-related explanation that I won't necessarily wouldn't want to communicate to anybody who hasn't read the book yet. In terms of
it's beautiful.
But to me, it's like that's having a protagonist that doesn't explain, having a protagonist that does things that are not good all the time, and then not having somebody else there who explains to you that they're bad. That is the two modern conventions that just drive me nuts, because to me they underline that something is fiction. You're essentially having somebody step in and say, don't worry, modern person, these are old people who are doing these things, and old people were dumb. Or conversely, somebody coming in and saying, don't worry, all of our old people are going to act like new people. Those are sort of modern viewpoints that are not imposed by Eric. Eric is a great writer. He knows the stories of that era. He knows the people of that era, and he writes them like the people of that era. He writes people that thought about the world like people thought about the world in the era that the book is set, which is good fiction. But that's out of favor right now, and I think those things kind of would conspire against it being published by a publisher who cares a little bit more about.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think memory is a terrible thing at the moment in comics, especially in the UK and America. But we live off stuff like that. I mean, the main comic still here in the UK is 2000 AD, and all the characters in that are massively morally ambiguous.
Right.
They're all doing good and bad things all on the same page sometimes. Yeah. And I think people aren't prepared for it anymore. It's very strange.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? Like when someone's like really faithful to the original timepiece and stuff, like. You get like something like The Witch, or like Robert Eggers, where everyone's like, "Oh, it's so wonderful! They're doing it in like the original language," and there's all. But with books or graphic novels or comics and stuff, like some publishers think that the audience needs to be spoon fed. and we don't.
Because they have been.
Yeah, the same thing can apply. You know, through fiction and literature or whatever, we can. Sometimes I think some of the best stuff is ambiguous because then we're deciding and discussing and arguing over what the meaning is of everything. You know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of status anxiety in comics, and I think that some of these are probably class issues. You have a medium that is, was essentially like the working people's medium when it was paying, and has slowly churned over into sort of like a if your mommy and daddy have a trust fund and can afford to pay for you, you can be an artist too. Kind of medium.
Oh, mate, you're talking our language.
I would applaud right now, but make it annoying.
We actually blame the term graphic novel sometimes. I've ranted about it. I think it makes it sound stuffy and boring and intellectual. And I think if it was just a comic, kids would be into it. Everyone would be into it. It should be on the newsstand, you know.
Right, and there's a reason that, like, anyway, it's the curve between those two things is a quite remarkable thing. And essentially, like the lifetime that I've lived is watching that change happen. But that status anxiety really hangs out. People really in comics are very fearful. People are fearful about being uncool. They're fearful about being on the wrong side of something they don't understand. They're fearful about like sending the wrong kind of signals. And like I said, it's a personality defect of mine that I just don't. Those are just not important things to me. To me, the important thing is, did this person make something that is compelling? Does it make you think about something or engage with an experience that you wouldn't have had otherwise? Are you changed or transformed in some way by the thing that you've taken in? Those are the things that are important to me.
Yeah, I mean, you
do it the most effective as you could. And if there's a more effective way to do it, why didn't you do it that way? Like, why make it more the thing it wants to be. You know, that's almost all the advice that I ever end up giving to people who I'm working with.
It's a raison d'etre for some of the stuff we've worked together. We work on comics. We make comics together. You know, the three of us made some really sort of comics that people, you got asked questions about. We did a comic together about the stories of prostitutes, the real stories from prostitutes, and there's a lot of grey area there, man. Do you know what I mean? It's not it's not as simple as people seem to say on fucking Twitter. There's a lot going on, and your comics exploring that. I just think artistically, verbally, story narratively is what we need. I think genuinely.
Totally, need a bit of pushback from all the other.
But it's such a wide. I think that. Like when you talk about subjects like this, sometimes it can be bogged down by the politics of the world, or this kind of thing. I think why Living the Line, I think, is such a breath of fresh air as well, and I think you've stated it wonderfully here. It's the books are the king, and the books are what they are. The books will be here when that argument's gone. And the book will still be as brilliant as it was.
Because your books are very different. We talked about Smudge, but some of the other books you've got, I'm going to go. I always say this wrong. The Rabagoo Race is. Right. I mean that's just a breathtakingly beautiful book. It's just very different from what you've talked about there. Did you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, sure. And I should say you said the P word. I have been accused of all different types of things by people who I don't have. I just don't think about this stuff in political terms. People are making things that are personal to them, and engaging with their personal or aesthetic influences.
That's the P word we need, isn't it? That's the personal.
I mean, I think so, but I mean, a cartoonist isn't a politician. People who are making policy decisions are the things people you should be harassing about their politics, because those people are fucking us over all the time. Terrible. I mean, you get what I'm saying.
And the other P word is professional, which is what we want to have our comics makers. We want them to create a book that we can enjoy. We don't want them. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yes. So I mean, Rabagoo Race is a fine example. Goresh is an incredible cartoonist.
Is he Scottish?
He is Scottish. Yeah. And he
won't hold that against him. My wife's Scottish. Sorry.
Well, you're allowed to pronounce it that way then. He's a really interesting guy. As far as I know, he was an illustrator. He's a very young guy. Illustrator who got interested in comics and started watching cartoonist kayfabe.
Cool. Again, that's been a gathering point. It's been for so many people. We hear about it all the time.
Jim and Ed did an amazing, just an incredible job of outreach to sort of awakening people to the aesthetic choices that are involved in entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's easy for people who are into film and stuff like that to just, you have like a book like Cocteau and Renault or whatever.
Mamet,
the name.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, a critic talking to a filmmaker and they argue back and forth for 400 pages, and it's just edited transcripts of their interviews. That's been around since the late 60s, right? So if you're a filmmaker and you care about film as a medium, you can read that. What type of engagement is available for somebody who is wanting to read comics in the same kind of way? And for a lot of people in the past, 5-6 years, I don't know exactly when they started, but Cartoonist Kayfabe was a big part of that, because Ed and Jim talked to the creators like other cartoonists. They had the conversations that I used to have with people who, when the cartoonists that I knew in Seattle, all of us went down to the local, Cafe Racer was the name of the place that we all met at, and argued and drank and drew on each other's stuff. And, if you went to a party at another cartoonist's house, you all argued about the cereal box art the entire time. Those are the types of conversations that creators and illustrators and cartoonists have with each other. And all of a sudden, these guys are having those types of conversations with Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, or you know what I mean, like
Matt Wagner or Howard Chaykin and these sort of people. Yeah, it was such an awakening. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally derailed. Gresh used to go watch Cartoonist Kayfabe, and he got a lot of influence from those kinds of discussions, but obviously has a tremendous aesthetic style that's all his own. So in a certain way, it's kind of outsider comics, I'd say, in the sense that he is making something that sort of sits outside of an existing tradition, but obviously pours on the art tradition. And so he's got these pages that are just like they would, if it was a heavily abstracted painting in a gallery in 1930, he would be being hailed as a great expressionist and abstract artist. Some of these pages are like verging on the non-representational, where you're not sure exactly what you're looking at and how you're oriented, and then all of a sudden
you're not sure if it's mountains or the moon or if it's a wave or it's incredibly beautiful book. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And once again, he did all of these, almost everybody that I've worked with is almost exclusively hand-drawn stuff. Obviously, digital stuff does not have very much appeal for me for various aesthetic reasons, but he did all these with, dry brush and wash on artboard. And then he would go in on the computer, and once again, technique I believe he picked up from Cartoonist Kayfabe, and he's essentially colorizing his washes. That's the sort of, he has this kind of candy floss color aesthetic, anything goes color combinations that is really, really refreshing. But everything has that foundational drawing and wash underneath it. And it's an incredible thing, and, a really wild narrative, and reminds me kind of like Cam Kennedy, I'd say.
Good job. Yeah. Because there's a clear manga influence in there, but it almost feel like there's an American and a French sort of influence in what's going on in it, because it's not tightly packed like a lot of panel comics and stuff like that. I think, just to be fair, we should also point out he worked with a buddy of ours, Dave Cranner, on a comic. I think he did a Glass City, or not Glass City, he might have done an anthology title. So he was almost like part of the small press here, and then next thing I see of him is the thing you sent us, and we're like, fucking hell, look at this.
Fucking something else. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I put a couple of panels as teasers saying we're going to be talking about this in a couple of weeks on the Slack, and everyone's, what is this?
Yeah.
Well, this is amazing. Yeah.
Well, and I'm crossing my fingers we can get it out. We had a really ambitious schedule for this year. I had 10 books on the schedule for the year, which, is three, depending on how you count, 3 or 4 more books than what we did last year, which would have, gotten close to like doubling our backlist by the end of the year. But the thing is that about a couple days after I sent out the the rough schedule for the year to our mailing list, is when we got the announcement that Diamond was going into the first steps of bankruptcy. And so Diamond has been our distributor the entire time that we've been a publisher. We wouldn't be a publisher without their support. They are just an incredibly powerful, but also an incredibly, like, everybody in that company loves comics and has their favorite creators and has their favorite genres and has posters on their wall. You talk to anybody on there, like you hop on a Zoom call or something, and there's you know, a giant poster from some comic that you vaguely remember from 20 years ago on their wall.
Oh, cool.
And we've just had incredible support from them. And all of a sudden, it's like, are they really going to go out of business? I mean, it certainly seemed like that for a while. And we've made money on every single book that we've done. We've never had a book go in the red, and frankly, I have got 2 kids. I have no interest in a book ever going into the red, and so when the distributor tells me that they can't pay me for a month's worth of, that's a big deal, because that's one of the 2 things they're supposed to do. They're supposed to bring the books to people, and they're supposed to pay you. And if they're not doing one of their 2 things, like, this has been, about 7 weeks now since their announcement. And I've spent a tremendous amount of that time trying to think about different potential paths forward. And so
it's all we've got here. We've only got Diamond here. I know you've got Luna and a couple of other people going on in the States, but this all we've got is Diamond. Slightly sort of siloed off company, but still, yeah.
Yeah, so the Diamond UK is on paper anyway, a separate entity, even though they share infrastructure or have overlapping infrastructure and things like that. When I see a sale to Diamond UK, that's like a sale that leaves, like that's a separate entity that is, listed in a different kind of way. And maybe that's part of legal fiction or whatever, but what it basically boils down to is that I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the next steps would be, and having had some interest from other distributors and talked to those other distributors, I don't believe that what we are currently doing at the moment, in terms of the way that I've been able to essentially work everything, would be replicable at the same scale with a large distributor that is going to take more money and is going to insist on much, much longer payout periods. Right. I like Diamond. I really like them. I like the support they give the books. I like their sense of adventure. I like the fact that I could call somebody up there and say, hey, this is a little crazy, but there's a robot that can draw. And if you guys let me send out a press release on Friday, we can finish the comic that we're working on. That'll be the first one that's ever been done by this thing. That's going to warn people that this is gonna completely upend people's judgment about the world and the way that they live and their values. And they'd be like, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll get you on the horn. You want to write an email to everybody on our list about this crazy robot thing that we haven't heard about and we're not going to hear about in the news for another 4 months? Yeah, go ahead. Right. I have a hard time imagining that if we were with Penguin Random House, that I could call up somebody at the top of Penguin Random House and be like, hey, let's crash this book that's not done, drawn by a robot. Do you know what I mean?
I get that, man. Yeah. Comics is such a small cog at Penguin, isn't it? It really is. Yeah, sadly.
So, which is all to say that, like, Gresh's book was supposed to come out in I believe June was the original release, but I have not felt comfortable until yesterday. I don't know when this is going to go out live, but we're recording this
tomorrow.
Okay, great. So two days ago, for real time listeners, I just said, this is not. I feel like the percentage of likelihood of Diamond capitulating to these things in the next year is fairly low. I think that they will get out of this first stage here, which is selling off assets in order to pay the existing debt. I think that they will get out of this stage, and they will probably continue to function in the way that we require them to function, which is being a distributor of comics and a distributor of books.
It's good to know.
And you know what? Like, we're just going to have to roll the dice. I'm going to put these books out. These books deserve to be read by people. I talked to the individual authors and said, I feel like this is a risk that's worth taking. We're going to miss a window with this where, if I go with another distributor, like I said, I've got interest from other people. I got a contract with at least one other place that's ready to offer us an actual deal. But that means taking the, 8 or 9 books that are in the can right now and pushing those to January as a start. It means essentially no living the line books for, the next 7 or 8 months. And maybe boohoo, right?
I mean, the thing is, you got to run it. You're on a heater at the moment, aren't you? You're doing, you got to keep going. That's the problem. You can't. If you delay it that long, people are going to start forgetting.
I mean, it certainly feels that way. And the thing is that I love these books. I love them. I want people to see them. I don't want to hide them in a closet. And frankly, I'll just go ahead and put it all out there. I told every person who works on a book for us that if they don't want to wait, but that's the only option that we have, that they can take their book somewhere else. I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to be in a relationship with me. I want all these things to be on the terms of the artists, because the fucking artist made the book, not me. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I helped with the cover or told them to add some text there, like if they want to make it clearer. And I didn't say do that 100%. I said, hey, maybe this would make it a little clearer, right? I didn't draw it. Goresh drew it, right? Goresh is the one who spent the past 2 years of his life making a book about a boy and his dog in a sailboat race.
I love the switch and bait in that, where it becomes about a dog. Don't you? It's so good. Yeah.
So anyway, I talked to the people who are going to have books out this year. I'll announce them next week or tomorrow. I talked to them and made sure that that's okay with them. But essentially, like, the rest of the year for us is going to look like, at the moment, we're going to have Goresh's quite amazing book, Rabagu Race, is going to be in August. And then EPHK is an incredible pinup artist that does amazing science fiction comics. He's a French international artist who lives in France right now, and he's going to have a book called Harpy out in September, which people are just going to get blown away by. I'll send it to y'all, but don't tell anybody you read it.
Okay.
For a while, okay? Because
what did you say that's called?
Harpy.
Harpy.
And his name is EPHK.
EPHK.
And he's on Instagram, and he's just
stunning. We've read his books.
What was that?
We've read some of his books. He does that strange alien book that the title's really bizarre.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned that. You've shown me that, Dan. Yeah. I know the one you mean. Yeah.
This is not that. This is EPHK taking every single illustration skill that he has and applying it to if you can imagine if. I'm giving you an on-the-fly pitch here. What's the name of that guy who everybody loves as a director, but he sucks as a writer? He directed the terrible Watchmen movie. I'm sorry, I'm probably making
Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder, yeah.
Imagine if Zack Snyder was a great writer, and had all of the interest that Zack Snyder does, and could draw like EPHK.
Right, nice,
cool.
I mean, it's
gonna be great.
I mean that in the best way. All those things in the best way possible. It's a stunning book, right? He's an amazing guy. He has a really interesting insight into the world. He's lived in all over the world and many different continents, and he's just got a very unique viewpoint. And he's made a stunning science fiction comic that's about 320 pages, and rock'em sock'em, punch to the face every 30 pages. Amazing. And we're gonna do it in September. And then we have 2 more smudge books coming out in the year, I think we're just about to announce the other one, so I'll go ahead and you guys can just break all the news here.
Oh, brilliant!
We have a book also in September coming out called My Gorilla Family, and that's another smudge book. And it's by an underground artist who he actually was an assistant on the Batman manga. And lots of other things from the time. He was a really, really overworked assistant and just ended up just making the wildest science fiction horror short stories you can imagine. And he just basically was the star of this trashy magazine. That was his name is Ijima Ichiro, and very, very nice guy. He's still alive. And Ryan actually visited him. Back in January and got to meet him and hang out with him and everything. And it's a short story collection by him called My Gorilla Family.
Amazing.
And
brilliant.
Awesome.
Like with all these smudge books, our goal is that each of these people will have a sort of second life in English, And so, in his case, I can just tell you, we have a second book of his that will come out, probably in 2026 as well. We're always thinking about how to introduce people, and then sort of like how you curate them, how you introduce them. UFO Mushroom Invasion came out And that was a no-brainer for the first book by Shirakawa Marina. But he made 20-something books, in his life, or 18 books or something like that. And lots of them are incredibly worthy. So we've got the rights for 2 more, and those will come out and paced out adequately. We'll have many years worth of books by this incredibly.
I mean, it's so good to know,
guy,
man. I mean, I know, obviously, with Diamond and everything. The publishing world for an independent publisher is always going to be turbulent. You're always on a roller coaster. You're never on a flat plane. You're never on Route 66, just straight road all the time. But to know that you're going to keep kicking out these jams, because they are because it's just it's just hit after hit, but
it's surprise after surprise with you guys. That's the thing. It's you never know what to expect the next book's going to be, which I think is great.
Well, I really appreciate the positive spin. The negative spin would be that I have no aesthetic sense and everything is different.
No. Every book being different, but every book being cool as well. I think is part of it, man. That's how I see it. Yeah.
I think, for want of a better term, house style becomes a weight around your neck that you can't get rid of. And like, you're putting out books that are from creators from all over the world, telling stories, whether it be modern or from the 50s, 60s, or whatever. People are discovering this stuff now, and that's what this show's all about. It's just discovering. It feels like you're a publisher that's getting people to discover creators and books, and just
that's where we go to find those new books. We go to the likes of you, we go to the likes of Strangers, we go to the likes of Bubbles. That's where the cool stuff is really coming out, and it's trickling down into Fantagraphics, it's trickling into Drawn and Quarterly, but it's coming from you guys who are setting the standard, I think, genuinely.
Totally.
And you care. Which is good.
Well, I mean, if you don't care about it, what are you doing it, right?
Exactly, man. Exactly.
We all know that the reward, the reward risk return on all this stuff. I have half a brain. I can figure it out that I'd be better off continuing to be a high school teacher or something like that.
You're using your powers for good, and we appreciate it. Before we sign off, where did the name? What's the origins of the name Smudge?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, the origins of the name Smudge. Well, so I'll tell you both. So, Living the Line is the name of a chapter in Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics.
Right. Okay.
And
nice.
I use that name as an illustrator as well, and just figured it actually fit publishing even better. At some point I told Scott about that. I don't know how he feels about that, but I just appropriated that from his chapter. That's an amazing book, and obviously completely changed my thinking about comics. And then Smudge, Ryan called me and we were talking about her Frankenstein. We were talking about how there's no original art because, of course, Kawashima Norikazu, he burned all of his work before he left Tokyo. 6,000 pages. He just set it all on fire and then left town. And so there's no original art. Even the original, the Japanese publisher that was going to reprint it had it shot from a copy because the copies were so expensive that rather than dissect it, they wanted to photograph it instead. I was just kind of like doing my normal thing of I want this to look as good as possible and kind of hemming and hawing about, what if we sourced it from this? What if we sourced it from that? And Ryan's just like, look, man, all these books are going to look bad to your standard. Like your standard is like the upper part. They're all going to be, nobody has original art. Nobody has negatives. Nobody has anything. If we're going to do this, they're all going to be from print sources, and that's just going to be how it is. And I was just like, well, I mean, what if it had like a different name then? So it's like clear. I was like, like Smudge or something like that. And he's like, I got to go. And, next thing I know, we talked like 3 weeks later, he calls me up. He's like, so about this Smudge idea that you had. I was like, what are you talking about? What? Yeah. To me, it's like, I think at the moment it was like coming out of my mouth. It was like I said, I totally forgot about it until he brought it up again. It was just thinking about the sort of ephemeral nature of ink on paper. Ultimately everything is a bunch of vegetables clinging to a bunch of other vegetables.
That's the best way to describe it.
you can spend 100 hours on your vegetable art, but you have to eventually come to the bottom line conclusion, right? And I think that the name kind of hints at that a little bit, that this is just a little skid mark, But the thing is that we can take these things and we can through the miracle of modern technology, we can bring them to life again, even if only for another couple centuries, and bring them to somebody new, and they can read them, and that in itself, that kind of active communication is, to me, kind of beautiful. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It kind of makes me want to cry. I know that makes me a weirdo.
No, we cry about comics all the time.
The very narrow bandwidth of like people appreciating stuff from the past. And the best example I can give is, we've got this new Daredevil TV series. I haven't seen it yet, but all they seem to be doing is putting out the same couple of pages of Daredevil by Mazzucchelli, and I'm thinking, there's so much great Daredevil out there that nobody is fucking talking about. What is going on? And it's the same. People have just forgotten about it.
Right. You forgot about the people, and the thing is that art is a kind of unique way that we can make a mark, but that mark only extends as long as people are willing to still look at your stuff. It makes me so happy that Marina Shirakawa drew this weird story about UFOs and hitchhiking fungus, 50 years ago.
Mad,
he drew this.
Crazy.
And he's been, he drew it when he was in his 30s, and then he was dead, 25 years later. The fact that 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people will read that, and it will mean something to them now. These people who live in a completely different continent, decades, half a century later, and then it still is significant to them, like that. It feels like a kind of like some small scale comics version of a noble pursuit.
Yeah,
also comics endures, man. It endures so much. I mean, what TV can you pick up from 1963 that's still readable? But there's hundreds of
Mr. Ed.
There's hundreds of comics that are available that are also just so readable now.
But also it's that. One thing, apart from the wonderful stories that people are missing out on, it's the artistic influences. Because how many times have we read a book that has changed the way we fundamentally create things, draw things, write things?
Right.
And it could be something. There could be people right now that are thinking, where is something that's going to really spark my imagination? And little do they know, it's a Japanese book that was printed in
about
the 60s.
Mushrooms. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The future is in the past, and it's our job to reclaim it.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Look at that,
man. How many bon mots am I going to hit you all with? Right there.
That's the episode title, V.
Yeah. Wow. But obviously, people, if they didn't know about Living the Line, they're certainly going to seek it out now. But if they, where can they go to find you, find your books, order your books, etc.?
Yeah, you can basically, we're distributed by Diamond. You can find us in any Diamond shop. So if you're listening in North America, you can get us from basically any comic shop that has a relationship to Diamond, or some sub distributors like Ingram and things like that. They can all order your book. You can get them on the dreaded Giant River if you want to. You can go downtown if you're in the UK. You can get them from any of the shops like Page 45 that just do an amazing, absolutely insane curatorial job picking up great books. I like to flatter myself to think that Page 45 is carrying all of our stuff at all times. Cool. Any shop that buys books should be able to get you our stuff, even if it's on special order, and I hope you will.
Nice.
We do too. Good stuff.
And website, Instagram, where can they find you to get the latest news of what's going on?
Yeah, we're most active on Instagram, but we send out a newsletter basically every 6 weeks as well, and livingthelinebooks.com has the link to the newsletter. So if you're not platform specific and you'd rather just get stuff delivered to your email, we hit the highlights every 6 weeks or so. Although sometimes I am tardy and negligent on that stuff because I am one person. and
but
doing my best.
You're doing amazing work, I can't say so. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and I can't wait to read these new books. We're already excited about them now.
Yeah, I am really.
Amazing.
Well, thanks for all the work that you guys do. I mean, I always love every time I get to hear it. It's just like such a breath of fresh air to hear the breadth of stuff that you guys champion, and the way that you champion it, and the way that you aren't afraid to have the fullness of the take, as opposed to the weenie version of it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Sean, we get a lot of emails through, and the Living the Line email with all those books on is probably our favourite email for fucking quite a few months. To be honest with you. So,
it's amazing. And welcome back. How good was that?
Bit of all right?
Yeah.
Bit of all right. Yeah. And it certainly gets you excited about books and comics,
we keep kind of like the same as Secret Identity comics, the same with these people out there are fucking working their asses off to keep this industry going and put good stuff out. And I'm so happy these people are out there, because a lot of people ain't.
Yeah.
And they're supporting the industry.
Yeah.
Got a lot of fucking backache for all the fucking lifting and carrying they're doing, I tell you.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're a chiropractor, you're probably in the right job at the moment. Because
Nice use of the word.
The next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of
comic industry crack.
Yeah, they're going to be quite knotted, those backs. But no, it's great.
Book the holiday. The holiday. This is a lot of money out of this one.
But like, it is something. It never switches off, does it? Do you know what I mean? You just got to keep going.
We're lifers, my friend. We're in it forever.
Yeah. And there's so many stories to discover, and books and creators. That's what I love about all the comics that we talk about. I mean, there's the creators we love, and the characters or certain titles that we keep coming back to because it's just in our blood. It's in part of our DNA. But I love just when we discover something.
Finding new stuff.
Yeah, finding new stuff.
Like Sean says, we don't know what we don't know about manga and the whole of that industry. Same with Bon Dessiné. Like, I couldn't tell you the depth of to which it goes.
My dream is the three of us all go to One Glen one year and you walk around. Because I walked around with a couple of people who'd not been to it before, who love comics as much as we do, like Eamon and Simon, and they're like, fucking hell.
Yeah. Something else.
You guys will blow your mind seeing everything there. You're thinking, why is US comics not like this?
I remember when we had the Europe comics boom, and I was reading digitally, but that boom
more of that shortly.
A few years ago. And that was just, it's like they were halcyon days, weren't they? Feels like now. It's sort of like, just everything was like, my God. And like, get me the untranslated version of this, because I just want the book on my shelves.
Don't know why they didn't become bigger with the actual physical versions in the UK stores, because they were putting out books that fucking knocked a lot of stuff into the shade.
I genuinely think because they were so dense sometimes compared to the opposite, which was going on at the same time of manga. I don't think people were prepared to put the work in to read a page sometimes. And I think if they did, they'd have found out. And we're going to talk about one in a minute anyway, so let's not ruin it. But if you do, then they're beautiful books.
And something for everyone. I think I mean, they say travel broadens the mind, and that work. Even if you're just reading books at home, read stuff from all over the world, because you'll just discover amazing stuff. And speaking of discovering some amazing stuff, what shout-outs have we got this week, gents?
I got a few. One is very self-serving, so I'll leave that to the third one. So first up, our buddy Eamon Clark. He's running in the upcoming London Landmark Half Marathon to raise money for Cancer Research UK and the Royal Free Hospital.
Good luck, Eamon.
Yeah, good luck, man. Please go to justgiving.com and search for Eamon Clark Royal Free, and you'll find it very straightforward to find it. And drop him a few quid, because he's working hard for that. And it's nice to see, we put it in the Slack earlier, nice to see quite a few Slackers putting money in there as well. Nice. So that's cool. Pat Mills and Gary Welsh on the project Ragtime Soldier. It's on Kickstarter. I could do with a little boost, actually. Celebrating 50 years of battle. This is the successor to Charlie's War and is now a full-length graphic novel. You really got to go and back this. This is a must-back. On there, anything that Pat writes about the war, is in a comic and is a successor to the greatest war comic of all time, then you got to get on it. So it's Ragtime Soldier, going back that. And very self-serving. Tribute Press Kickstarter is now live. Thanks, genuinely big thanks to everyone. You guys have backed it, and I'm really humbled by the people who've come and backed this book, and really appreciate it. We passed the numbers in 6.5 hours, and it was our largest total for a while ever, I think. So it's 3 underground comics, Tony Osmond 2, and a couple of anthology books as well. 1 prose book full of terrible advice from me. The return of Atomic Hercules features in Dirty Basement, and I can't wait for you to see them. I can't wait for you to see what the artists we've got. Ed Requino, we've got Falpy has done some fucking amazing stuff. Cliff, 4P. There's some great artists on it. We've got a combination of Cliff and Adam. Cliff is inking Adam, and it's the perfect combination of those two together. You'll see. I've shown you some of the pages. You'll see some of them in it. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Cliff is a fucking, oh my god. I was showing you some of the pages from Cliff's story.
Can't wait to read it, man.
Oh, thanks, man. It's nearly all done. We'll be stuffing envelopes when the money lands from Kickstarter. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's backed it. We put out a Never on Anything podcast where me and Falpy, we thought we'd have a go at this. So we went live 7:00 on Friday night, and we recorded a podcast from 7:15 to 7:30, where we pressed it live just to see what how it worked. And people who haven't done a Kickstarter, it's probably quite useful. People who haven't done a Kickstarter before, they can see what the process is. We timed from pressing start on it to when the emails came out to when we could see backers and all this sort of thing. Yeah, pretty, and it's the usual, Falpy being a fucking bastard to me, so it was quite funny as well. But there you go. Yeah, so thanks to everyone for that.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
Yeah, I've got a couple. The Dry Cleaner, coming soon from TBH Comics. With the blood of the innocent staining his hands, the Dry Cleaner is thrust into a violent world he thought he left behind as he is driven on a relentless quest for revenge, targeting the mobsters who try to take everything from him. Will he succeed in annihilating his enemies and keeping his identity safe, or will the Mafia's grip tighten until all is lost? Prepare for a gripping ride, because sometimes the cleanest clothes hide the dirtiest secrets. So it's a 32-page comic, drawn and written by our friend Kieran Squires. So, mate, I've read it. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed that book. I'm going to be backing it myself. Do go check that when it launches. You can notify me on launch. That page is ready up for it to go. It's going to release soon. We've got Silence, a psychological horror graphic novel. Former comic artist Stanley Kane, recovering silence, MI finds an amulet that brings his angry creations to life. So that's from Joseph Oliveira.
What a great cover that is, by the way.
Yeah, lovely stuff.
No, great cover.
Really good. Yeah. It's smashed through its target goal on that one. Josie put a great post up on Instagram, because he did that Surviving the Cryptids game, and it didn't kind of get to the threshold, and he's kind of reflecting on it. And you can kind of do the motivational thing of like, if you take setbacks, you kind of
if you take setbacks,
never take setbacks.
Don't take
no.
But if you're going to hit a setback, you just got to kind of brush yourself up and keep going, man. Like, and he's the example of that. It's just
he is. Yeah,
there are things that there's learnings to be taken from everything. Like, and if it's easy all the time, it's probably not worth it. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I mean, you learn a lot in kind of defeat over kind of constant winning, but it can be hard. It's a lot of people kind of get put down and don't ever kind of get back up.
Yeah.
What's never down though is Lawless, 24th and 25th of May 2025. Doubletree by Hilton Hotel, Bristol, B51 6NJ. Do go check that one out. And High Viz Comic Con, Saturday 21st of June 2025, King's Heath, Birmingham, UK. All inquiries please contact info.highvizfestival@gmail.com. And as always, do go check out acprecommends.com, run by our friend Craig Shields.
And come join us on Substack, because we're putting out some good stuff on there. Dan's putting out the album cover, the comic cover thing every week.
Cover club thing.
Cover club's really good. Yeah, that's really interesting.
That's a lot of fun to do that. So,
So, and thank you to anyone who listened to the show through Substack.
Yeah, the numbers seem to be going up on there. It's nice little crowd.
We have no idea how, when, or where you've listened to this show, but if you have, we really, really appreciate it. And you're here to hear about comics. So should we recommend some comics for our lovely listeners? Tony, do you want to go first?
Well, yeah, I'm going to start off with the first one of my two is going to be a Bond Destiny book, actually, because it's a return to Cine book. We haven't done any Cine books for a while, I'm going to
No.
say.
No.
No. This is Amazonia. It's called Episode 1. They call it Episode 1. I'm not sure why the translation says that. I just think it's kind of Volume 1, if you look at it. Album 1, almost. So Leo, the comic artist and writer, he's right up there for me with Marini for my favourite BD creator. And what I do with him is, as we'll talk about in a minute, a lot of the UK translations tend to be slightly smaller, so I'll buy his books in hardback albums when I'm over there in French, just because I love it so much. So I thought I needed to catch up on his stuff. I'd read all of his sort of survivalist and the Beetlejuice and Alderaan and all that sort of thing. So I thought I'd read Kenya, which is the first of this little run. So you've got Kenya is 3 volumes, then you've got Namibia is 3 volumes, and the next one is Amazonia, which is 3 volumes. And it's only scripted by Leo, this one. It's not drawn by him. He drew the first one, he drew the Kenya, and then he dropped off and allowed other people to draw it. So it's scripted by Leo and Rodolphe, art by Marchal, colours by Sebastien Bouet, translated by Jerome Saint Cantine. Is Jerome the guy we had on years ago? Is that the dude? No, who did we have on the translator?
Oh God! Don't do
or like
this
year
to
2 or something. Sorry, babes. The editor is Erica Olson Jeffrey. This follows the adventures of a British secret agent, Cathy Austin, in the 1940s. I think it's post-war, and this is it follows. So she's kind of the hero of this. Or she's the protagonist, and similar to. There's a really interesting dynamic I'll talk about in a minute. So the story of this: there's a photographer who washes up in the Amazon in a small medical outpost, and he dies, but not before he passes over a roll of film. The doctor who runs this little outpost for the locals, caring for them, he thinks, right, this is interesting, because he was very much about handing over this roll of film. It was the only reason he survived so long, this dude. So he takes it straight into the city, because there's nowhere to develop film in these little villages. And he takes it to a friend of his at the consulate, who's a colleague. He's the English consulate. And he, in turn, sends Cathy Austin out as an investigator to see what's happening. And what it is the photograph. Now, they slow burn this photograph. They don't really... So you've got, like, narratively, you've got people looking at it and going, bloody hell. But you're not shown it immediately, which is great. From a storytelling point of view, I really enjoyed that. I think, what's on that? Because you go, like, what the fuck's on that picture? You got to keep reading. And it's a cannibal tribe who are renowned and scared, frightening and scared. People are scared of them in the area, and no one wants to go near them. And it's them walking through the jungle in a row, and right in the middle of the row is this huge, tall, white, dome-headed alien who's walking as part of it, and you're like, fucking hell, what is this? And just that image, and this is something that Leo does in all of his books. He suddenly presents you with something unusual. He done it, all the Alderaan and Beetlejuice books. There's just suddenly out of it, there'll be just the wackiest, weirdest, disturbingest creature design in the middle of just almost like a soap opera, detective soap opera, sci-fi kind of story. And suddenly you get this alien there. And for some reason, Cathy Austin, she investigates it, and she discovers that people have seen some lights in the sky prior to this, and they tell her about this. So she decides this is an extraterrestrial. And you get, as the story goes on, you get some little moments of this creature, and he seems to have some kind of scanner-esque, the powers that scanners have to do stuff. There's something going on with him, where he can either heal people or he can fucking fry people, and into on flame and stuff like that. And Cathy decides with her colleagues that the reason he's befriended this tribe is because they're completely untouched by the morals and the evils and the modern day life of more modern people living in the mainlands. We're confused and distrusted, and there's this mess of thing. But these simple cannibal people, that's who they've gone and joined. Now, why wouldn't an alien do that? I suspect if they want to find out true human nature, they don't want to see the people affected by what's on telly and fucking what they're saying on the internet and stuff like that. They go straight to the source, which is what they've done here. There's a character from Cathy's past turns up, which you begin to think, that's a bit weird. And I'm going to ruin the end of the first volume. So if you want to read this, hang on. So she decides to go into the jungle and find out what's going on. And while she's looking out into the darkness of the jungle at night, sensing something's there, you see the alien there looking back at her. and you think, fuck. And he does that. Leo does that. He lands these little shock moments in that. Otherwise, it's kind of like a female Indiana Jones in a way. These stories,
Okay.
that sort of grand adventure, kind of boys' own adventure, but with a female lead kind of stuff. But what he does is he throws these unusual moments in all the time with the other creators as well. But absolutely beautiful. My only issue with this Cine books have various sizes. I don't know if you experienced them recently, but they tend to print stuff in different sizes. And I found this a little too small.
Okay.
Is that one? That's one of the smaller ones, because sometimes they have A4 sort of size.
Or even bigger sometimes.
I know there's Thorgal. Is it Thorgal books that are smaller?
Yeah, same size as the Thorgal books, which is a shame. Because I bought the Wendigo Thorgal book from France, and that's much bigger. And that's beautiful. But I found the lettering a bit small for my old eyes, and they do love to write quite a lot. If you look at the page there's a lot of writing on that page. The French and Belgian comics do like to write quite a lot on the page sometimes, and I found it a little bit small for Esmond's old eyes. But go and get anything from Cinebook. I'm glad they're still there. I don't really see them as much as I used to. I tend to only buy, and I get their mailer. There's worth signing up for mailers, actually. Quite interesting stuff going on with them. But I always try and pick up stuff from them if I can. So Amazonia by Rodolphe, Leo and Marchal is my first one. There you go.
Nice. Dan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Mine's a Kickstarter backed, but I realised you can actually read this online.
One that's been discussed on the show in the past as well, hasn't it?
Yes, I've mentioned it before.
We had him on, didn't we, to talk about it, didn't we?
Yeah. He said it was it launching while we were talking to him, but it hadn't actually hit yet.
Oh, okay.
I can't recall. Gonad the Bulbarian. It's a sword and sorcery comics told with gross out humour. It dares to ask what happens when a testicle teams up with a dingleberry to defeat a venereal disease. It's written by Jeffrey Barant and art by Blake Sims. It's great. I tried to sort of work out what kind of humour it is and think kind of like Adventure Time, Rick and Morty stuff, but a lot more adult. The story starts off with a Conan-esque hero who's not named, but he's being tortured by the evildoers, and he basically says, "My right nut is tougher than all of you." And they say, "Oh, is that right?" So they chop his right testicle off, and the castrati resurrect Conan's right testicle, and he becomes Gonad the Bulbarian. And essentially, he's like a kind of a miniature version of Conan set in this world. And the humor is kind of it's great. It's really fun book. If you just Google Gonad the Bulbarian and look online, you can read it online for free. I think this on what's the scrolling one? Webtoons, is it?
No.
It could well be on that. I think he's uploaded to a myriad of platforms. But I don't want to spoil too much of the laughs about it, but it's quite amusing. At one point, he gets like a blood sword, which is kind of like the big sword of the arc. And as he gets it, he holds up into the loft and says, "By the power of grey balls," and he appears on some grey pubic hair as sort of this energy comes flowing down to him. So there's kind of shots at Conan, Master of the Universe, very other bits and bobs of kind of pop culture. I just kind of blasted through it. It's a real fun read.
Yeah, that sort of stuff, that irreverent sort of.
Yeah.
It's both a piss take and honours what
came
before.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like parody stuff that is like punching down. Do you know what I mean?
No.
It's always better when it's like, oh, we're parodied. This is a parody, but we do actually like the original stuff. Do you know what I mean?
There's a bit where he's being tortured and he says, this is to say Gonad tried to leave behind his life of unrelenting violence, but a world without violence is a world without life, and Gonad would never willingly walk that path. And that's like something that could be taken directly out of like a Conan book.
Conan, yeah.
But like recontextualizing this is great. It's really good. Yeah, so go check that out. That's
nice.
A fun book.
Nice. My one is I checked out a collected compendium of a book that came out from Boom Studios 2019, around this sort of year. It was when we were doing some picking out covers and stuff. And the issue one of this, which is the cover of the volume, was a highlight for me, and it's still one of my favourite covers of like the past few years because I think it's just absolutely bang on. It's a book called Bone Parish. Now, the thing is, I thought, I wanted to read this for a while, so much so that I just jumped straight into it. I skipped past the creators and I forgot who wrote it. And then when I went back and I discovered who wrote it, I thought, fucking hell, what is it with me and really liking Cullen Bunn books? This is taking the piss. He's not giving me money. But yeah, this is written by Cullen Bunn, illustrated by Jonas Scharf, coloured by Alex Guimarães, lettered by Ed Dukeshire. That's a letterer that comes up a few times.
We hear his name a lot, don't we?
Yeah. Covered by Lee Garbett. So, got to give a shout out to that. The cover itself looks like a big pile of cocaine, and there's a little razor blade that's been there for cutting it. But the way it's shaped, there's like a skull in the shape of the powder. As just a design nerd, I was like, I really like that. That would probably be quite a good t-shirt. But what is Bone Parish? The story is this. A new drug is sweeping through the streets of New Orleans. One made from the ashes of the dead. Wars are being fought over who will control the supply, and the demand is rising. While the various criminal factions collide, users begin to experience terrifying visions of the dead coming back to life through them. And nice, it doesn't say too much about it. I like a synopsis that just gives you that flavor. I just found myself, I thought I'll give this a go. I've wanted to read this for a while, but and I started on it, and before I knew it, I was just it wasn't what I expected at all. I don't know what I expected, to be fair. I went into it sort of sight unseen. I didn't know it was a crime drama, essentially, like a tense crime drama with faint touches of the supernatural, the esoteric, just peppered around the edges. But for those, we've all watched crime TV shows like your Breaking Bads, or the ones about Mexican cartels, and all Sons of Anarchy. All of these sort of, it's got that kind of feeling and tempo to it. You're dealing, there's familiar rhythms to it around this family, who have suffered loss, but they are creating this drug which people snort, and then they're having these visions, almost as if like they're drugs for mugs. Just want to say
don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs
unless they're really pure.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this stuff, which is apparently amazing, really isn't very pure, because you have like these hallucinations that make you feel like you're reliving moments of the person you've just snorted. The idea itself is so fucking macabre.
See, I've got a theory about why he thought of this.
Okay,
go on.
So who's the dude from the Rolling Stones? Not Mick, the other.
Keith.
Keith. Now, Keith Richards, didn't he put in his autobiography that his dad died and he snorted his dad's ashes?
Fucking hell.
I've got a feeling he said that. And I wonder whether that's been like, Cullen has read that and thought, oh, fucking hell, that'd be good for a story, wouldn't it? Fucking I think about that one a bit,
Yeah. And he sort of peddled it into this, I mean, you take away that sort of that angle of it, like the dead and stuff. It flows like a crime, like a drug crime cartel sort of story as it goes on, because the tension, and there's backstabbing, or is there, and there's been tragedy.
But they're still like digging up bodies in graveyards, aren't they? That's the thing. Picking and choosing who they're gonna.
There's one of the family who basically does all the work, who is the chemist, for want of a better term. Who is dealing with, and when she does the work, it's like, you stay over there because you can't see, no one can see what I'm doing. And that's that sort of, with her, that's a little bit of the eldritch, esoteric, there's a little bit of weird supernatural stuff going on with her. But she's also just making these drugs, and like the story sort of gets bigger, but not too big for its own boots. It still stays very personal. Because the patriarch of the family has passed away, and the mother, who is now basically running I'm going to call them a cartel, but it is running the family business. One of her kids is an up and comer who thinks she's not running it very well, and at the same time she's using the drug herself and is seeing visions of her dead husband talking to her. So she's actually snorting her dead husband, and that is running out. So it deals with grief. You know, there's an awful lot of grief. There are moments, rival criminals want in on the game. You know, it's almost like they've created this new drug. I want a piece of that. So some people try working with them. Some people try. There's hostile takeovers. There is the way one issue ended, a particular death that was kind of shocking. I didn't actually expect it to happen like that. But the splash page of what is about to happen to the person was fucking awesome. You know that something brutal was about to happen. Swamps, crocodiles. That's all I'll say. But I found myself like really sort of attached to these characters, and yet not really. I think it still stayed true to the fact that none of these were good people. There's a couple of characters that maybe morally could escape this world, but it was spending time with a lot of not evil people. They're just people doing bad things, and they're layered criminal characters. And I just didn't expect it to be. I don't know what I expected of the book, but I think it benefited for me reading this compendium, which is like a big version of it, and I just rinsed it. It's like 12 issues, something like that. So he's got.
I read the first couple. Yeah. It's a good quick read as well.
Yeah. And it's good, and like I think you get a sense of the characters. He's really good at dropping you in, and yet you get a sense of where you are.
Bun's always class, and he always makes it very readable.
Yeah,
and it's nice, clean, readable art full of people you immediately recognise and continue to recognise.
The art at one point I thought it reminded me a little bit of like Charlie Adlard's Walking Dead.
Oh, that's interesting, because I was going to say Jacob Phillips. I got a bit from who are they're very similar in many ways. I think. But
I loved the work. It was very appropriate. It's about real people doing real things. You don't want there's no one looking. I mean, one of the members of the family, he's like a big built dude. He's clearly looks after himself, wears a suit, but this isn't a book of they're all attractive people. There's different sizes, genders. It's a real sort of rounded cast. So it was just a real pleasant read. Do you know what I mean? A pleasant read, but it's not a pleasant read because it is a lot about grief as well and mourning. Because what they're doing, if you think about it, I mean, it was an enjoyable read, but if you think about it, it's just fucked up. They're digging up dead people, turning them into drugs, and then people can snort them.
We've all had a little bit of a dead person going in our mouth or something at some point.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
A little bit,
Yeah.
Dan, why are you screwing your face up? You never experienced that?
I thought we was never going to talk about that.
Unbelievable. But no,
me up there.
I think for legal reasons we need to mention John Otway at this point and say that he's never done that.
We've never ever done that. But no, really good. The beautiful thing about, I mean, this was like I guess an omnibus. 12-issue thing is probably like a meaty book. So I think it was a surprising one, because sometimes when you get, especially with a 12-issue book, there can be a moment, and I'm sure we've had this with a lot of books or series or whatever, where you're thinking, how many more episodes or how many more issues of this are left? And I think if you get to that point,
is it a complete story then? Does it finish?
It's a complete story.
Right.
It ends with a little bit of a, there's an echo of the tale that's just been told right at the end. Not as if it can continue. I think it's just done, and that's what's beautiful about it. It was
he's a bit of a king of that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Man, we need a lot more stories like that.
Yeah,
stories of endings.
Yeah. So if it passed you by,
incidentally, I see Dark Arcs back in previews. So
really?
Amazing. Great. That's great. So Bone Parish. If it passed you by, revisit it because it's well worth your time. That's from Boom.
It's on GC, isn't it?
Yeah. You can read the collected one. Yeah.
Cool.
Tony.
Last one, Shaolin Grandmaster Killer.
The best name ever.
Yeah.
The Fist of Eternal Darkness is coming. 18 plus, A4, perfect bound, black and white interiors, lovely cover. Looks like, I don't know, like an old 90s video game cassette, almost a little bit like that.
Amazing.
So this is the dude we talked about from his book Gorehouse, about a month ago, I think. Thomas Sluzalek. He's published it through his own little outfit, Steroid Productions. It's a story of a bad man with massive anger issues who also happens to be the toughest martial artist in a post-apocalyptic nightmare of a world, albeit very similar in many ways to us. So even though it's the future, there's gangs, there's a particular gang called the Black Axe Gang, it also relies on the sale of booze, drugs, prostitutes, movies, and action figures. So Gu is the Grandmaster title, I think that's how you say it. And he's a man of legend from before. He's this sort of legendary martial arts character who's a real person. And what you do is you get him doing something, and then you get these people talking about him. So they're saying there's these sort of massive, like, fucking steroid muscle dudes in this massive market, and they're trying to buy they're looking for action figures, and they see an action figure of Goo, and it's sealed in its blister pack and all that sort of thing. And they said, fucking, I remember him from years ago. He was great. Yeah, they did 3 films. The first one was a bit arty. The second one was fucking brilliant, and the third one they put some shit comedian in it. So I don't know why they did that. It was a bit rubbish. So yeah, I'm Superman 3.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
So interestingly, Thomas uses this technique in the first couple of pages, the first 4 pages, to show who Goo is from the point of view of other people. So it's almost his point of view looking, and all you see of what he's looking at. So the first one's his father telling him he's a shitbag. Second one is a lover. Third one is his sensei, who's saying you could almost be as good as me. And the fourth one is a fellow student of his, a fellow martial arts student of his, who thought he was his friend, but he betrays him. And in doing that, at that point, we haven't, apart from the cover, we haven't seen this character yet, but you get an impression of what he's like from the way people are talking to him about him. Really interesting little way of doing it. Then the following pages, you get the sense that he's got this fucking massive rage that he's barely containing, and he's only containing it by wine. The booze helps him contain his anger. So he sets off, accompanied by this. He has this sort of invisible, monstrous creature who follows him around, who is, we don't know. We don't think it's probably I'm going to say, I don't think he's a real character, but he's almost like his conscience, or he's like the devil on his shoulder kind of thing, this massive lizard that follows him around. And he goes across this cursed Earth-type scenario until he gets to a city, which is the one I showed you, which is this massive city that rides on the back of a massive lizard kaiju kind of creature. And you realise at that point, you go, fuck me, this is like a widescreen comic. He's really going for it here. I also realised at that point, if there was ever a comic designed for Mr. Butcher, this is the one. And I'll be posting it to you this week.
Oh, thanks, man.
As a present. Yeah. He draws, so he goes into the market in this town that's on the back of this beast, and Thomas draws every single fucking signpost, every single head, every single nipple that's available on this sort of thing. And he's carrying around this massive, at first I thought, is that a massive eyeball? But it's not. It's a massive thing for putting wine in, and he's carrying it around on a rope on his back. And he comes up against 3 members of the Black Axe Gang, and it doesn't go well. But because he just doesn't stand for bullshit, he just absolutely doesn't stand for any kind of bullshit, and he absolutely eviscerates them. And there is a second volume of this, which I haven't got yet, which I will be sending off for. But different from Gorehouse, because this is black and white. Gorehouse used that sort of flat, very bright, vibrant purples and blues and stuff like that. But this is all black and white. I think he's drawn it with an eye to possibly colouring it.
Okay.
Maybe. Or he's drawn it with an eye to it being like a big copy widescreen manga, formatted manga. There's the name of Steroid Productions. He does as if it's in the same design as Shaw Brothers. He does it like that in a sort of title. So there's massive nods to that stuff. There's loads of back matter as well, really interesting. And he talks about the inspiration for Goo is Bakmai, who is Paimei, who's the famous martial arts character with the long white moustache, long white hair, and he's always flicking his moustache, and he's a martial arts. Yeah. Probably most famously for being in Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
He says so I think he's also in Executioners, which is the Wu-Tang versus Ninja as well. He's in.
Okay.
and it's apparently based on a real dude. I didn't realize that, but that character is apparently based on a real dude. But absolute cracker, another cracker from him, like another dude living in Germany, doing comics. I think all of his comics are in English. I'm not sure, but I think so. And I said, no way, came fucking more prompt than some of the people in this country send their comics out. The couple of little spelling mistakes, but this is an early comic of his. If you go to Thomas hyphen and then SLUZALEK Sluzalek.com, Thomas-Sluzalek.com. Instagram is Thomas_Sluzalek. And if you want to get a copy of it, it's comicdojoshop.bigcartel.com, and you can get Gorehouse. Now, interestingly, Gorehouse 2 is currently out for funding at the moment on Kickstarter. So if you're really into this, you enjoyed Gorehouse 1, which is fucking excellent, go and back Gorehouse 2 as well. So my first one is...
There's two issues of this, and apparently...
Yeah, 2 volumes. He's planning in the interview in the back, he's planning it on being quite a long-running thing, I think, as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gorehouse and this are his titles.
2 main things. Yeah. Shaolin Grandmaster Killer, Volume 1. There you go.
I reckon you've got another good martial art comic in you, T. That you'd like to
I do enjoy doing it. Yeah, we've got. I haven't told Falpy about the plan that I've got for the next one, but yeah, I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Yeah, might include that.
Yeah.
Taps nose, wink, wink.
Martial arts comics. Martial arts comics. I'd love to do one.
Yeah, man.
They're good fun, man.
Great.
Yeah.
Plus, you can write, kicks him in the face, and then can you just fill out some action?
Yeah.
I think actually right, you sort of like right fight page X to this one, let's fight.
These are the beats that have to have. The way me and Falpy now work, I do that with him. So I'll say to him, and when I work with 4P as well, I say, look, these are the beats we need to hit in the drama of the fight. But you can work around it, and I'm not going to dictate to you where all the panels are in a fight comic for the next 6 pages. But these are the beats. These are what they need to say during the fight.
Yeah.
And just work it out. Make it 6 to 10 pages. How do you feel? And then we can talk about it as we go along.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's how the magic is made.
That's how the magic and the sausage.
Magic sausage.
The magic sausage is made, and that's what we're all about on this show: magic sausages and comics. And we hope you've enjoyed all the comics we've talked about. A raft of comics this week. It's been amazing. It's been inspiring, and it's added to our wish lists and shopping carts or whatever it is. So we hope you have enjoyed it. If there's anything you want us to talk about on a future episode, please do get in touch. Or if you've got any books coming up, or perhaps if you want us to do any shout-outs, just chuck us a line. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at awesomecomicspod on Insta, at the awesomepod on X. We have a wonderful Slack community there. So join us there. Get in touch with us there about how to join that.
It's always buzzing, that, isn't it?
Creators, comic readers. Look, if you're passionate about the hobby, if you're listening to this show, there's a wonderful community on there that are just like talking about comics and keep the conversation going, as we always say after every episode. So, as well as art channels, all kinds of things. There's loads of stuff.
Book channels talking about literature.
Yeah.
Well, literature. I did talk about the Mac Bolan, the Executioner novels I was reading this weekend. So.
Well, that is literature.
Yeah.
Well, as Sean mentioned in the thing, you got to read some trash.
Yeah.
And that's good trash.
Yeah.
To be fair, that kind of stuff helps you break down the formula too, because they have formula, those books.
Yeah.
And some of them are actually really fast, fun. We wouldn't have Jack Reacher if we didn't have Mac Bolan. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Pulp and stuff like that is massively, massively important. So,
got this to read next: Killmaster, Nick Carter.
Oh, amazing!
Killmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a strange looking cover that we'll have to talk about.
Because it's early 60s.
Yeah.
You go on LinkedIn. What's his job? Killmaster. That's interesting. I'll stick a CV in for that.
Yeah. Do you need an A level in English for that?
Yeah. A level in killing. Oh.
Yeah, didn't do that.
I took maiming. Shit.
Yeah, didn't. Anyway, you can get some gear if you want merch. We have a shop, ACP Gear.
Oh, we haven't pimped that recently, have we?
.redbubble.com. Don't be surprised if you see some new designs on there someone soon. Especially
what about Dan's dad?
Yeah. No, we can't do that. But thank you for listening to us wherever you are in the world, wherever you listen to us, whether it is the website awesomecomics.podbean.com, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What are the networks we on, Tony?
We're on the pod network called Always Listen to Boney Dabrowski, Never Listen to Keith Sinnott.
There you go. Dan's chuckling to himself, and Tony's. It's almost like Tony's drop the mic moment every week, isn't it? That bit.
Yeah.
I expect nobody to get that one, but it makes me laugh. That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
That's where the best humour comes from. As long as I laugh, that's one audience member, please. But where can people find you online, etc., chaps? Tony.
Neverownanything.com or Tony Ez on Substack.
Nice. Damn.
You can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com, or you can check out on Global Comics. I update them simultaneously. So go do that.
You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you again to Sean for joining us this week to talk about his raft of books.
Great guest.
Getting us excited about some books to come later in the year. Cannot wait. And we cannot wait to talk more comics next week. So join us, same bat time, same bat channel, for a load of just bat shit. To be honest, because that's normally where the conversation ends up.
Yeah.
And from Dan, Tony, and myself, wherever you are in the world, we hope you're really enjoying making and reading the comics that are in your life. From all of us at ACPHQ, we love you very much. Don't we, Tony?
No.
I know you said it once.
It's almost like when when you're a kid and your mum says smile.
Yeah.
And you go, no, I'm not smiling.
Yeah.
I feel a bit like that, like you're bullying me as a mother figure.
I mean, if we're in the same room, I'd probably do that thing, pulling out a hanky and then licking it and then wiping a mark off your face.
Off where?
It's just because I want to wipe that smile off your face.
Got a bit threatening there.
yeah. Oh, I don't know where that came from.
Don't fucking smile.
Yeah. You fucking
don't. Right, we're gonna cut that there before Dan makes me edit something. Goodbye, everyone. Have a brilliant week. And what else should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.